City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded December 9, 2019.
Ooh, that's loud. It is 6:49, and I will call the meeting of Stevens Point City Finance Committee to order. First item on our agenda is amended Community Development Investment, CDI, Grant Transfer Agreement. Director.
Thank you. This is part of the Northside Yard development. The city had applied for and successfully received a $250,000 community development investment grant that's issued through Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. As part of that agreement with WEDC and Merge LLC, the money would then be transferred from the city to Merge LLC to help cover the costs of burying the power lines along the north side of Centerpoint Drive as part of the Northside Yard development. That total dollar amount that the developers already paid out of pocket is $588,000. So they are asking for partial reimbursement of that. Because of legalities that come along with real estate development, Merge LLC is now the parent company of Northside Yard LLC, and therefore we would be transferring the CDI from Merge to Northside Yard LLC. So would recommend approval as presented.
Questions?
So moved.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Is there everybody's fighting for the second. I saw Jeremy's hand and I heard your word at the same time, so I'll give it to Alder Slowinski. Are there any questions? Questions from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion carries. The next item is issuing a request for proposals for completion of a strategic plan. Yay, one of my favorite things. So, thank you.
So as hopefully everyone recalls, the city did originally issue an RFP for a strategic plan for the city. We received two proposals. This was in April of 2019. One for $39,125, another proposal for $74,150. Seeing that the $20,000 we had budgeted for 2019 wasn't nearly enough, we included in the 2020 budget $67,500, and that does not include the carryover of $20,000 from the 2019 budget. The request for proposal is the exact same thing, with the exception of Mr. Ostrowski's name removed and mine in there. So would recommend approval so we can get this out in early part of January.
Questions?
I'll move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I'll give that to Alder Morrow. I would like to thank staff for working on this, and I've enjoyed having good back and forth dialogue on this. This has been a major issue for me, and I am very excited to see that it's coming together. So thank you, Director, and your staff for working on that. Any questions from the audience? All right. There is a motion on the floor and the second. All those in favor of the motion to approve as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Abstentions, motion carries. Next item, item 3, agreement with the Portage County Business Council.
So at the direction of the council and of the finance committee, we have been working with Todd and Portage County Business Council on creating a possible donation agreement. Every year the city provides financial assistance through our yearly budgeting process to the Business Council to assist in economic development and workforce development initiatives. We have been, from my understanding, operating without an agreement for several decades, and so this was staff's attempt, working with Todd and some others, of putting together an agreement that outlines goals, objectives, and standards for not only the city to meet, but also Portage County Business Council to continuing to provide financial assistance down the road. So I'm sure Todd has some questions or comments, but I'm fairly comfortable with this donation agreement, and in general would recommend approval as presented.
All right, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. So this agenda item bears relation to a later agenda item, which we may want to move up to be next. But while I'm glad to see this framework for the coming budget year, as might be clear in the note that I wrote up for the next item, I'm less comfortable viewing this level of support and form of support as being, something that we're committed to every year for the years ahead. So I don't know what that means in terms of, what's in front of us.
I'm assuming you have your hand up, or are you
Yes.
just playing with your pen?
No, I have my.
Okay. Alderman Rowe.
I think I think the Business Council does a lot for us. It goes above what the Convention and Visitors Bureau does to help promote the city, the business activity and so on. I think it is good that we have a set defined rules, level of expectations and so on, which is something that I think that was right that we would need to, that we should have in. But I think the Business Council does a lot for us. And I know that I've known Mr. Kukan for several years, and he has been a strong advocate for the county, the city, and so on, to try to get other people to meet, to be here, and to create more business opportunities for everybody. So I think this is, I'm in full support of this.
Anyone else on the committee? I will just state that I appreciate this agreement, and I think it's very good for 2020. I was going to say 19, that's all gone. Oh, man. It is a good framework and maybe could be used in the future. It was something that I had asked about and actually had a chance to review and offer some edits which are part of this, so I appreciate that. There's no question about the amount of work that's done by the agencies to whom we provide funding. That isn't the question, it's just accountability.
And that is something that I brought up, that is that seems to be in the agreement that we have.
Yes, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't actually differ with anything that Alder Morrow said about the council's great work. I guess the question is whether the Portage County Business Council is unique in its relationship with the city, whether we look at it as having a kind of a special enough role and relationship to warrant that level and consistency of support, or whether it fits within a category. And we're aware, we've been focusing on two other organizations to which we've been providing annual support, and of course there are others. And previewing a little bit the next item, or the other item on the agenda, when President Johnson and I sat down and focused on this question of support for community organizations, civic organizations, it seemed that having a set of three that were, that received the support basically on the basis of having asked somewhere along the line didn't seem like much of a system. So again, if it's felt that Portage County Business Council is unique in these ways that have been mentioned, that's one thing. But another way to look at it is to look at the bigger picture of civic groups and how we decide to support them, and so.
I agree. I'm going to ask Mr. Kukan if he has anything. Oh,
That's okay.
You're on my blind side.
I know how that goes.
Yes.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the differences in many of the organizations that we fund that are what I would call non-city organizations. The city band, for example, provides a unique service. Some could argue that the symphony orchestra fills that gap, but it's not. It's different. They're similar, but different. You have the Portage County Business Council, who is not only acting as a chamber of commerce for the city, and I'm going to leave the county, any stuff outside the city, out of the discussion for the moment, but know that if something happens in Whiting or Park Ridge or Plover or Amherst, it affects Stevens Point too. But they're the Chamber of Commerce arm for the city. We really don't have that. They are also the economic development piece, even though we have an economic development partner and a whole division in the city to do that. There are things that are done through economic development that the Business Council assists us with that most people don't know about. There are frequent, I would say bi-weekly or twice a week at least, we're talking about something relating to economic development. The Business Council gets a contact, they're looking for X, let's say 100,000 square feet near a major railroad. Plover can meet that. Whiting could potentially meet that. Stevens Point could meet that. We have been asked for information and we pass that along to the Business Council. The Convention and Visitors Bureau provides tourism assets, which is not mutually exclusive from economic development, but their focus is on tourism and getting conferences here and conventions. And hopefully when they come here, they see how awesome we are. And then maybe they talk to Todd and say, hey, I'd like to open up a shop here. Then we have things like CREATE, which arguably is economic development, but they actually provide resources. Their function is to provide resources for entrepreneurs and startups and veteran companies. They provide the resources. They don't necessarily go out and seek economic development or seek tourism, but they are all very much connected and they all very much are independent in certain aspects of things. I would argue that all of them provide unique benefits to the city as well as collective benefits to the city. Therefore, they're all pretty important.
Thank you. Alder Slawinski, did you have anything?
Not at this
All right,
time.
thank you. Mr. Kukan, did you want to provide any remarks?
I always love a microphone. Well, first of all, I want to thank the city council for approving us for funding next year in the budget. That is a fact that shouldn't go unnoticed. And I also want to thank Corey and Ryan. For the last couple months, we've had a lot of communication about this and first about the funding, then about the agreement. Actually goes back to April of this year when we first had conversations about an agreement with the city. So it's nice to see it come together. And I also agree that we should have an agreement. We have agreement with our chamber role. We have an agreement with all our members about what we offer them for benefits. So I think it's important to do that. There are just a couple things I'd like you to think about in terms of the agreement and some of the language. And Ryan and I have talked quite a bit about this. I've been communicating with my executive committee who would ultimately make the decision. One is just a couple small wording things. One is, I don't know from a standpoint of donation, is the right terminology for the city to use in terms of this? Is it a donation or is it some other word just from the legal standpoint? A donation is usually something, nonprofit related, so that it's fine with us if you use it, but that's something we wanted to raise. On the second page, at the top, it says of the PCBC, then it says the word continuous under number 1. It talks about meeting on a consistent basis, and I just want to make sure that you don't know what that is and I don't know what that is. Ryan and I know what that is, but that term consistent, is it better to say quarterly or every day at 7 o'clock at the Wooden Chair or whatever that case might be? I just don't want it to come up in December.
I'll go with that.
You can come along with
Yeah,
that as well.
thanks.
So again, just some little, there are a couple bigger things, I guess, from my perspective. One is on the bottom of that second page, number 1, for the year, attending council meetings, no problem there. When you get to A, B, and C, it starts getting pretty specific about metrics regarding city contacts on our website. I don't know if we can go to that deep of a level with people, searching our website and some of that. There are some things we can offer. I just want to be careful that with the website and specific metrics, I don't know if today I can tell you we can deliver on that. I know that can be done, I'm not saying that, but so some of the detail in that one, I just want to make sure it's at least on record, talking about if it does come up down the road. And then on the last page, item number 5, in terms of maps and information, I'm assuming those are things the city would provide with us. And I don't know, in terms of selling lots in the industrial park and in the East Park Commerce Center, if that's something that, I don't know if you've hired Bill Schofield, I know he does for the county in the county business park. I don't know if he also sells lots for the city industrial parks, but if Bill needs to be somehow brought into that conversation. So I'm just throwing those things out, and I appreciate the fact to talk about this. Ryan?
You bring up a couple of good points, and just before the director speaks, I was the one that asked about some of the metrics from the website. So, because I'm a data person, sorry. I like numbers, and so, and maybe we can talk about what is most appropriate. But I think it's helpful. It's one thing to show the website, but it's another to say, we had 4,700 distinct hits, non-repeat. And then sometimes you can, because we've done this with Google Analytics, is actually survey users where, what is the region where you're, those type of things.
We can do all that. I just don't know if we can get it to the city. That's the
Oh,
part
sure.
that, we have all kinds of
Yeah.
metrics about hits and impressions
Sure.
and all that sort of stuff. But if we can define it in the city, that's the
Okay.
part where I worry about, so. But we can do that, yeah.
Director?
I guess my only comment would be related to the number 5 on the last page. Yeah, the staff is more than able to provide those maps. We were wanting to have them updated because if business prospects may not necessarily go to the city's website first, they may go to the Portage County Business Council
Okay.
website first. And through site selection, updating Zoom Prospector, which is managed through WEDC, things of that nature. Because we don't have, as a city, our own separate economic development website, we rely heavily with site selection, business recruitment with the business council. So that's why that was included as part of that.
Alderman Shore, sorry.
No, thank you, Chair. So just one specific question for Todd in reference to the language of donations and how that's usually associated with nonprofits. From an IRS vantage, the Business Council is what kind of organization?
The Portage County Business Council is a 501c6, which is a membership organization. Our foundation is a 501c3. But the money would come to the Business Council itself, so.
Association, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess the mayor's comments were responsive to the issue that I raised of whether the Business Council is in a category by itself. Of course, I'm aware of the other organizations you mentioned, and I think his implied point was that the category is economic development, which I would accept is a crucially important category. That doesn't, unfortunately, solve the problem, because the other organization that came to us seeking support at approximately this level and a little bit more, the Downtown Alliance, is also, has a valid claim to be part of that category. So I think, the question remains, particularly, if you add up Portage County Business Council plus CREATE plus potentially the Downtown Alliance, what are we budgeting annually? And I guess for the time being, City Band is the one organization outside that category. Okay, then does that remain the only non-economic development cultural organization. Of course, Create Portage County itself also has a cultural dimension. So I think the question stands of how all this adds up every year, and that we should be keeping that question open and dealing with it for the 2021 budget, rather than saying that we're going to commit to what we've done in the past.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me with a nod.
Just, I think you raise a good point. I think we're not going to get into this discussion now, but what's the definition of economic development? But you're going to be going, I don't know when the strategic planning process will start, but that will help drive and determine a lot of where your funding can go on what organizations fill what role in that area. So that'll be a helpful document.
You are absolutely correct. You've said that before. I have a granola bar in my backpack, which you're welcome to.
I know Tori has some comments.
Yeah, Alder Jennings. I'm sorry that I forgot about you.
Tori Jennings, Alder District 1. There's no doubt that the Business Council offers important services in terms of bringing business leaders together, networking, the Chamber of Commerce sort of activities. However, at no time in the 3 years that I have seen the Business Council do presentations to council in terms of what they do, I have yet to see anything that's outcome-based. And that should be the premise that guides any of these kinds of larger outlays of money. So $30,000 could fund a 0.5 person for the city to do the much-needed promoting of the city and economic development messaging that we need within the city, that we do not have the staff or funding to do. So we're giving it to an entity that in the 3 years that I've seen this presentation, it's basically been, this is our website. A website, by the way, that if I Google Stevens Point doesn't come up. This website is not worth $30,000 a year. And we need to be doing much more of this ourselves, and there needs to be outcome-based metrics. And the comment has already been made, well, I don't think we can, we might not be able to provide that, and if we need maps, can the maps provide that? And I also know, I'm pretty sure that the Business Council goes to the CVB to use their resources. And Alder Morrow, I just have to say, to pit the Business Council against the CVB is, I think that's not a very fair way to go about this. But what I can say is that in terms of outcome-based, the CVB has always been very clear about these are our outcomes. These are heads and beds. This is the money we're producing, et cetera. Same thing with Create. They can point to, we brought this business here, this business here, this business here. The metrics are there. One last quick comment. For anyone who attended the Small Cities Conference, and I would have hoped to have seen more of us there, I sat in on a very interesting session. The extension at University of Minnesota is doing extremely interesting work on this very issue. And they would call the idea of chasing smokestacks, is what they call it, is not how you do business economic development. And actually, their research is pointing towards tourism. You create a community that people want to come visit, and then people want to come live in that community, and then businesses are attracted to that community because that's where the employees are that they want. Their research, their contemporary research, comes down very strongly towards tourism as being economic development. But I want to just raise the question, if we have $30,000 and we know that we need to be promoting the city, our comptroller treasurer has already talked about how can we message to the public how their tax dollars are being used. We have no newsletter that goes. We can do an e-newsletter. We should be doing one. But there's no one to do that. Our IT person is being saddled with doing all of these things, and that individual is IT, not graphic design, not advertising, not messaging. So that's my spiel. Thank you all.
Can I respond, please?
Certainly, your name was mentioned.
Thank you. I was not, I do apologize, I was not meaning to put the two, the CBB and the Business Council together. My point was, as the mayor had also stated, they have different roles. So I was not trying to say that one was less important than the other. And as Alder Jennings said, yes, it does. I know that the CBB has the way to measure. They put people in beds, and they can bring different things here. But the Business Council also brings people together as well, just with the networking that I know that Mr. Kukan does. I know that the networking that he has, getting people together to talk, does bring a lot of development here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm wondering if, it seems that there's a few items that need to be taken care of on this that I'm not sure if I feel comfortable necessarily approving this without addressing some of those concerns. We take another stab at it? Or if the body is fine with it the way it is, we go for it.
Yeah, I'd rather get it right the first time. And so if the committee's preference is to kick it back to staff, and I'm more than happy to reach out to Todd again and get some clarifying
There's a
questions
few
answered.
words that I think we need to make sure we're using the correct words.
Sure.
As it relates to metric, I like my daytime job, it's outcome driven. I can't go to my boss or the county board with a new project without having a method of measuring how we're going to succeed. So let's make sure we get it right. Is there any objection?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Thanks to Mr. Kukan, and we look forward to having you work with staff. Item 4, transfer from TIF District 5 to TIF District 6. Corey?
Yes, so as I stated in my memo, obviously we've talked about transferring this money for some time now with the Fox Theater and the potential to need that for the Fox Theater. Now, of course, that is up in the air as far as whether that's going to be a TIF expense or not, just based on how that unfolds. But in case that does happen, where that is a TIF expense, we do need to have that money transferred there to pay for that. And then, of course, if that does not end up being a TIF expense, year-end 2018, TIF District 6 owed the City General Fund $6.3 million. So certainly being able to pay some of that back and reduce that IOU to the general fund and improve our unassigned fund balance would also be very positive. So basically, either way, I think it makes sense to transfer the funds this year.
I would entertain a motion, or first, are there any questions? Questions from the audience?
I'll move to transfer $250,000 from TIF District 5 to TIF District 6.
There is a motion on the floor and a second by Alder Shore. Barring any other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item, review of total tax rates for all jurisdictions for the 2019 tax year. Corey?
Yes, so included in your packet, I included a summary of the various taxing jurisdictions that make up the tax bill and the changes from the previous year. Overall, the total tax rate is increasing by 7.33%. That was mainly led by the school district and the school referendum. The second phase of the school district referendum is taking effect for this tax bill. And then also can provide the update that we do have tax bills prepared, and they should be going in the mail this week. And the property tax information is also live on our website. So if you go to stevenspoint.com/taxes, you can find what your new tax bill is for this year. So, and I didn't really intend to take any action on this. This was just a general FYI, especially I know that sometimes, obviously, especially if there's an increase in taxes, you might get questions from constituents asking why it went up or what happened. So I just wanted to throw that out there just so everyone is informed as far as what's going on and kind of what to expect.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think I want to also note that Portage County, part of that 26 cents or 4.70 change is partially attributed to the healthcare center referendum as well. So thanks to everybody on that one. Anyone have any questions for Comptroller Treasurer? Anyone in the audience? All right, thank you. Moving on. Next item is item 6, discussion of process for awarding annual funding to local organizations. Alder Shore had alluded to this a little bit ago. He and I met, and I'm going to turn the floor over to him.
Thanks. Again, this is not a decision item for this evening or this month. It does look more towards the 2021 budget. And I think most of the important points were covered in the earlier discussion. The question is how much we want to devote to recurring contributions, whatever term you use, how those add up, in what categories they fall, how much should, rather than being recurring, be on a by application basis, what in the philanthropic world we would call a project grant. So I feel like the earlier discussion maybe reinforces the point that we need to put a little effort into rationalizing and systematizing for the next budget cycle. And Todd's point is well taken that there's a good link between these issues and the strategic planning we'll be undertaking.
Absolutely. So I want to thank Alder Shore for putting this together after we spoke. And this has been building up, and I've, wearing both of my hats, county board and then city council, this has been an issue. How do we, number one, do we continue to support non-county agencies, non-city agencies? And if we do, what does that look like? How do we, what's our policy on the support? We really don't have a policy. We've had it by way of approval of the budget, which is a huge policy document, but we've never had a systematic approach to, what are our priorities, which again should come out in a strategic plan. And based on those priorities, how do we look for partners to help us realize those? So that's what started this, and I'm open to discussion from the committee. Yes.
I want to apologize for getting the Stevens Point Alliance's current name wrong. They changed their name from what they used to be, and it's not the
Yes.
It's not the Downtown
Yes.
Alliance. It's the Stevens Point Alliance.
Yes, don't minimize that.
One, because I know that we already talked about it before, I know that the state did the grant and handshake as a basic contract for years, and the state is doing the same thing with several of their contracts as well, with metrics and so on, and evidence-based needs and wants. And I think that what you're saying and what Alder Shore is saying, I think this is on a good path to show what we're actually getting for our money.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess
Yeah.
I want to thank Alder Shore because I think this is a good starting point, with our strategic plan coming up, and we can use this, include this in here and incorporate it in, so that we can start, I guess, measuring, where we're going to put our tax dollars and where we're going to invest in them. So I do appreciate you putting this together, and I think this is a good start.
Thanks.
Any comments from the audience? Again, this will be returning, and look forward to the discussion. Barring any other discussion, we will be moving on to the next item. Thank you very much, Alder Shore, for taking our long and lengthy conversation and putting it into such a nice memo. Good job. Yes.
Shucks.
As we all know, I can be long-winded, and I was, so he managed to be concise with that.
Yes.
I can also be long-winded.
Didn't have to agree that quickly. Discussion of, item 6, discussion of process for, I did that already, sorry. Item 7, write-off uncollectible personal property taxes and account receivable. Corey?
Yes, so this is something that we do annually. And this year, all of them are for personal property taxes. And with personal property taxes, that's the tax on the actual contents inside a business as opposed to the real estate. And for that tax, it does not follow the real estate, it follows the business. And unfortunately, on occasion, you have a business that doesn't make it, or that has other issues, and basically makes that uncollectible. So those write-offs are before you for approval.
I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the write-offs on collectible personal property taxes and accounts receivable as listed.
All right, we have
Second.
there's a motion and a second, and for those listening at home, this amounts to $1,127.98 for 2016, 17, and 18. Any comments, questions? Anyone from the audience? All right. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed would be no. Abstentions, motion carries. We have approval, item 8, approval of the claims paid. I'd entertain a motion.
Well, so moved, but I also have a question.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve. Is there a second?
second.
And there's a second. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Director Badun.
He's hiding.
The purchase of a lot of salt is not surprising, but it is attention-getting. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask whether there's anything to worry about here.
Really, I would hope that we're not worrying. What we otherwise have this year, we did knowingly exceed our budget a little bit just to get back on track. The last years, we've actually been, even after filling up with what we project we otherwise need, we've been actually depleting our shed. So this year, we made the conscious choice to get at least closer to full.
No unexpected budget hit here.
But yeah, so it was actually a conscious decision to try to get a little bit closer. I think we spent a little more time also trying to more accurately identify how much we had remaining as well. And so, yeah, that kind of just put us to where we, pushed it. So we have a full shed this year, so
Nice.
everyone should be happy to hear that.
I'll watch the weather for further.
Yeah, let's just hope we don't need it all.
Yeah. Are there other questions? I have one question. You, Comptroller Treasurer, you have, in the past, you've had the sheet with unexpected or unusual. There weren't any, so I'm assuming everything is fairly routine.
Okay, and actually, it looks like there was an oversight that it didn't get,
Okay,
that
all
the
right.
sheet with the 50,000 and larger didn't get included, but
Okay.
we can certainly run that report and get it to you tomorrow morning.
I found many of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I do see that there are
Yes, there are quite a few.
a number over 50,000, so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's not so much the price value, but if they're somehow different or like all of a sudden we're filling up the salt shed, which is very cool because it was very icy this morning. So, all right, thank you.
Just to be clear, the salt probably wouldn't, the one item might have shown up on that list, but the report is set to print anything over 50.
Okay,
So
So it wouldn't notice
it wouldn't,
all of those.
Great.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why I
Correct.
did
There
it in
was one
small
for 86.
segments, so we wouldn't catch it.
yeah. What's going on there?
10 expenses of $20,000 each, and, yeah. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Does anyone from the audience have any questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve the claims paid, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed is no. Abstention, motion carries. All right. Next item is item 9, adjourn into closed session at approximately 7 PM. That's not bad, half an hour off. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session on the following. Item A, negotiating the terms of an amendment to the development agreement with General Capital Acquisitions LLC in TIF District 10. Would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
A second.
There is a motion and a second to adjourn into closed session for the stated reason. Roll call, please.
Slawinski,
Aye.
Morrow,
Aye.
Shore,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye. It is 7:30 and we are in closed session.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.